The actor and the boom are all moving, the lavalier is moving, which means that the distance from the mic to the sound source is also changing, meaning you get a dynamic delay. C sound is an absolutely bonkers language where the type is defined by what is the first letter in the variable name. Catching memory leaks and use after free is actually easy. One of the easiest bugs to chase down. So I don't think putting all the friction in place of preventing use after free or something is worth it.
So, Sander, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
I am a production sound mixer in Norway, which means I chase actors around on movie sets for the most part.
Chase to make them do what?
Well, that kind of depends on what the director wants, usually. But I'll have let's see. Yeah, you can probably see that guy, the fur ball. That guy will be on a stick, and I'll be chasing that around, putting it over the actors' heads when they speak.
Nice. In Norway, although you've been a lot of the times in Sweden, right? How?
Yeah. I live a lot in Sweden now with the BSC friends, and
Yes.
And when I'm there, it's mostly programming and sound design, stuff that doesn't require being on the movie set.
How did you got into the programming?
I started programming probably when I was 10 or 11 years old, something like that, because I saw some like cool hacker movie or something, and I wanted to be cool hacker man, and I always liked computers. I started in Batch. I was batch scripting on Windows, which is an insane start, but it worked, and I stuck with that for quite a few years, actually, I tried to make video games. I had no idea how they worked. I remember the first time I tried to make a video game, I considered Super Mario, because I grew up with an NES. And the way I thought about it was like, okay, you have a DVD, and when the DVD plays, every frame of the video is in the DVD, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so you have to like make every possible frame, and then you pick up the right one. And so I made a Frogger game, frame by frame in ASCII art in Batch. So it would be turn-based Frogger. So you pick, do you go up, down, left, or right? And then it would print like a new screen in text. And I just made every frame, and it worked, but it was horrible. It was horrible.
Nice.
So that was how I got started.
Batch scripting, meaning like a console, like command window on Windows.
Yeah, .bat files.
Yeah, wow. Like for the scripting, I started with Bash. So coming to Batch now, the language is like you kind of expect what it needs to do, so it's easier, but it's in no way like helpful. Like the syntax is wild oftentimes, and
yeah, it's bad. It's kind of bad. You have to get used to it again. Obviously, I don't keep using Batch, but eventually you have to come back to it because you're going to make a build.bat eventually. So when you come back, you're like, what are we doing here? It's pretty wacky.
What did you do after Batch?
I went to Python because I heard that was the good one for beginners, which is not true. I would never recommend Python to a beginner anymore.
Really?
No.
Why?
I had no idea that there was such a thing as types. Like, I didn't know what the computer was doing. If I had some clue, or if I had a sort of principled computer science teacher, it probably would have put me to C or something. I'm like kind of mad how long it took me to unlearn all the wishy-washiness of Python. I thought you could plus strings together. That you can just, of course you can add a string and an integer, obviously. but that makes no sense once you know what's going on in the computer. So I wouldn't recommend it as for a beginner, because you don't actually learn the fundamentals in Python, I don't think.
If you would like to support this channel, you can become a member on Patreon. You will be granted access to a private Discord channel where you can chat with other supporters and guests of this show. For more details, check out my website at wooka.sh. Wookash. What did you do in Python then? Apart from adding strings and integers?
Surprisingly complicated shit. I wanted to do real programs. I wanted to make cool software. I liked Blender. I liked Adobe Suite as a kid back when it was good. All those kind of programs. They were like real programs. I wanted to make cool real programs, and I struggled with that because Python's not made to do that at all. I found some UI library that was terrible, and I couldn't theme it to be dark mode very easily, and I struggled with that. But I did successfully make a few tools that I still use to this day. I have one called Film Stripper, which is for putting together, if you have a sequence of PNG files, it'll make them all into one PNG file that's just long with every frame in a film strip. Okay. And that's useful for when you make UIs that need custom graphic PNGs and stuff. That way you can load in one texture and then you offset it. You crop into the texture and you offset it from when you turn a knob or something in an audio plugin, which is mostly what I use that for. I made a thing that would put animations into people's eyes. You could feed in an image sequence, like an animation, and then it would track their face, find their eyes, make a mask to cut out for the eyes, and then place the animations in. And you could change how much feathering you wanted. And it was super, super bad because there was no UI. You had to just run it over and over in the terminal and get an output PNG. But it worked, and I used it. And because at that time we were working on some music videos and stuff, and I thought that was fun. Because maybe we could use it in a music video.
That's a really interesting way to start programming, to do things that you're kind of use programming as a tool for the things that you're doing sort of around you, like your project, not necessarily I need this for work. At some point I will be sending HTTP requests over network and I need to know, what kind of the database I'm using, but it's more like, hey, I have a goal, and wouldn't it be cool to have this weird wacky thing and then to use that for? Nice.
Yeah, everything that's come into... I think I've always been very, I want to do a thing, and I'll just scrap it together with whatever I have. I will send you an image of what this setup is right now. It's it's insanity. And the same thing was when I got to play with Legos as a kid. I think I never built houses and worlds and stuff. I built camera gear that I couldn't afford because I was a child. So I would build tripods for my phone to get it into the right spot to make a movie. And I would build a housing to put my phone in Lego and stuff like that. So it's always been sort of scrappy in that way.
When did you start... when did your fondness begin for movies?
It's hard not to like movies when you're a kid because obviously they're, moving, flashing colors and stuff, and you're kind of mesmerized by any screen. But I started properly appreciating film and cinema probably when Inception came out. That must have been, 2011, 2012, something like that?
2010.
10. Whoa. Dude, I'm old. Yeah, I saw a Angry Joe review. This is a gaming YouTuber guy. He did a review of Inception, and he said it was just awesome. So I had to see it. When I saw it, blew my mind. And then I realized I have to do this. I don't know what this thing is, but I have to do this. And luckily I found a guy in my class who also had just seen Inception and realized, oh my God, we have to do this. So we became good friends, and we started making movies around 8th, 9th grade. Yeah.
So you're both programming and making movies while being in school, like even primary school.
Yeah. I mean, above 6th or 7th grade, I never did any homework. I
Wait,
just did
what?
not do my homework. I got punished real bad for it, like always at all the report cards and stuff. It was terrible. But I guess I gained other skills.
So what did you do in high school then? You started doing programming and movies in like primary school. So how did your high school look like?
I studied media in high school. So for 11th to 13th grade, I did media and communications. And I went with my good friend Sindre, who's the cameraman at BSC, actually.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big shout out. And so he and we studied media together. We tried to start a little company, make some advertisements, try to make it a thing. And it worked to some extent. People started noticing. And obviously, when you go to media school, you get to do media things, which is nice because then I do some homework on occasion.
You started a company when you were in high school.
Yeah, technically he owned the company the entire time, but we kind of did it together. Yeah.
Okay. What you then produced for, like, how did you earn your first money through the company?
Probably the first job I did where I got paid was I was an assistant on an advertising shoot, which was a huge advertising shoot, like massive 15-meter tall green screen. We're going to fake that some people are coming out of a Hercules airplane and stuff. My job was to have a machine leaf blower standing next to a platform that would come out of the Hercules plane, and I was here just blowing wind into the actor's hair.
Nice.
I got about $100 for that. That was pretty cool. I think that was my first gig. I was paid.
Okay. So you worked in a media high school, so I guess it's not a standard high school, meaning like you don't spend your time in the desk usually doing stuff. It's more about like project oriented and making things happen like creatively. Is this correct or not?
Yes. We had some subjects like just studying English and science and whatever. But a lot of our time was spent in media class, which was largely practical, or you were sitting in front of a computer editing and designing stuff. So, but now we were actually the last generation that would have that setup. All the other generations after us, now media, if you study that, it's no longer a trade, technically. So now they get almost no hours spent on media. They have to study like more fancy math and
like physics and, all these, and stuff. Like
yeah, they have to do all the subjects that you would otherwise normally do in high school. It's not as focused, which is I feel quite blessed with that.
Okay, so how you're now programming, doing like company stuff. You have high school and projects. Okay. You spent a lot of time, I guess, on this. Basically, like every day you do a lot. Because like normally when you're in high school, you're kind of like going to school, sit through the lessons, and then you go either play video games or do something outside, right? Like that's like you have these like two worlds. Like you have your high school world, which is kind of boring, but you get to spend time with friends, and you have your like free time. And you already like kind of merged together both of these realities, no?
Yes. So I'm not going to claim I didn't play a bunch of video games. I spent way too much time on video games still, but there was a lot of work, but it didn't feel like work because we were so into it. And when you do it with friends, it definitely doesn't feel like work. Then it's something else.
Okay. How does then this transition later on? You finish high school, I guess, and what happens next?
I worked as a phone salesman for a little half a year before I was going to go in the army. And and came back from the army after about 11 days because my knee broke down and I couldn't walk after we did our depot mile and runner test and blah, blah, all that stuff. So that didn't go very well. But then I studied music technology at NTNU in university. So I did 3 years of that. 3 years, got an A on my exam, and then dropped out because I don't have the degree. Which, because I didn't do enough. You have to like stack in bonus subjects to get enough points or credits to have the degree. And I don't have that because I didn't want to do a bunch of extra like studying medicine and bird watching just to get the points.
So, okay, you didn't follow through the like the extra activities. So you done the music only stuff. You got A on your exam, meaning I'm assuming meaning that you know your stuff, and then you dropped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I could have done more subjects afterwards, but at that point the film career was taking off, so there was no point in spending the time really.
Okay. What was happening on the film side?
I had received a mentor from the heavens, from my good friend Jesper. Actually connected me with a guy called Ruben, very very swell fellow. We had actually met on that first paid gig that I'd ever done. He was the sound or production sound mixer on that production, and he was taking a break, sitting in an area for lunch, and I went over to like, yo, what's that? He's got a sound bag on, because when you work as a solo sound production sound mixer, you'll probably have the bag strapped to your belly. And he had that on. I'd never seen anything like that. And he had the microphones. I knew I loved sound at this point. And so I was like, what's that? How does that work? What is this thing? And he showed me that, told me what to Google about the equipment, recommended some stuff. And later, I was reconnected with him through my friend Jesper, and he needed someone to fill in on a TV show, a children's TV show about a cool bear that's a firefighter. And
okay.
I filled in a few days there, and eventually he just left that show to me, and then I did 3 seasons of that.
Nice.
That was very, very fun. And from that point on, that was kind of my big break, was the Cool Bear Fighting Fires TV show. And
what way?
from that point on,
in what way it was big break?
I had something to show then. I'd done 3 seasons of a show that's on TV right now.
Okay.
It was not just like I stood with the leaf blower against someone's hair that one time.
like a breakthrough in terms of like, now you can show this to anybody and like, hey, here's my experience, and they can be like, okay, this guy is like reasonable enough to show up at work every day and then also do his job properly. So now we can employ him.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It also showed that I just knew how to hit record and use all the equipment, because there's a lot of equipment when you're a sound guy. So it's also a sort of, when you're production sound mixer, that means we call it sound chief in Norway, because it's the position where you're the boss of the sound department. You're the head of the department, which is a very high role, actually. And so having that on your CV that early, and not having to work your way up through sort of, I was a production assistant, and then I was a sound utility, which is just a production assistant for the sound department. And then later I was a boom operator, and then I was a boom operator for like 5 years. And then finally I got to be mixer one time. Just getting to skip the whole stack is huge. So that was, it was an easy boost for me. I never had to work my way up the ladder. I just got blessed.
Nice. Let's continue the film path, and at some point we'll go back to the programming path, and we sort of will follow in, like, match the film path with the programming path. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have 3 seasons of the Bear Firefighter kids show. In your belt, at your belt, there's an expression like that. But you have
Certainly.
this. You have this. What happens next?
Let's see. I don't remember the chronological order of things. At that point, we were kind of 3 friends doing this together. There was Sindre, camera guy at BSC, Usk, who was a just incredible, like, savant level, super great photographer guy, who I think he's the youngest student that ever got into or when he got in, I think he was the youngest student that ever got into the Norwegian Film School, which is a super prestigious thing where they take in 6 pupils per line every other year. Everyone wants to go there. I think so. I think he was the youngest that got in at the time. They had to make some exception to a rule to get him in. Crazy skilled guy. And we were kind of a trio. We were working together. And when people needed someone, when they needed an extra camera guy or an extra sound person or something, then we kind of made a name for ourselves. We worked on random advertisements, and we did some various productions, a lot of music videos. I got to do some VFX. That was very fun. I was always the technical guy. As when there was something, music videos, there's not much sound to do. But when there's technical stuff to deal with, like, we have to figure out how we're going to coordinate the color science, color spaces, and the encoding, and get all that, like, pipeline stuff for post working, then I would have a good time doing that.
Okay, nice. And this leads us up to now. Like, this is the work that you're still doing as a sort of your main occupation.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
My main moneymaker is making movies.
Okay, nice. Now, let's switch to the programming pathway. We mentioned Batch scripts in the beginning, and then Python for a couple of tools around you. What happened next? Because I know that at some point you're a low-level programmer that is capable of understanding what is happening in the computer, which is not the pathway that many people will follow when they program in Python.
Right, yes. I was always acutely aware when programming in Python that I wasn't really doing the thing. Because I could tell that the programs I was writing was not ever going to be Adobe After Effects. It was never ever going to be Blender when I write it in Python. And everyone kept denying this. Everyone I talked to who were Python people, you can write anything in Python, it's fine. You cannot. Another thing about Python, the reason I wouldn't recommend it is because it doesn't, I guess there's Python or whatever, but it doesn't compile. So you don't get introduced to the concept of compile errors and getting, like, warnings that, like, your syntax is wrong here before you run it and stuff. So, but that's a digression. At this point, I was always acutely aware that I wasn't really doing the thing that I wanted to be doing with the programming. So when I went to university where I studied music technology, which is kind of just audio engineering, but you also get to be in a studio for a bit, there we learned C sound. Well, first we did Python. No, that was the thing. That was what was wild. We did C sound before we did Python. C sound is an absolutely bonkers language where the type is defined by what is the first letter in the variable name.
What?
Yeah, it's super wacky, and it has this way of you're probably aware, normal program execution go top to bottom. And then there's stuff like Verilog, where kind of every line happens at the same time. In C Sound, it had a predefined funny way of working, where, like, you programmed an instrument, you programmed a mixer and a set of instruments, and then sequence of notes at the bottom. There's like 3 sections in the program. It's been years since I used it now, so I don't remember exactly. But it's sort of implied that things run in a loop, and the different types are like, there's a float that updates every sample. There's a float that updates every 10th or 100th sample, and that's inherent to the type. There's a string, there's a constant variable like float thing, I think. And that was super wacky, but you could use that technically with a super fat, slow, bad wrapper to make audio plugins. And that got me like hooked on that. I wanted to make plugins because that's a real program. And still, I was painfully aware that I wasn't really doing the thing. I know what the thing is like. I know what it's like when you open a real audio, like synth plugin. You open Serum or Nexus or, any of these pro plugin things. I could just tell that this C sound shit that I was writing is not the real thing. And so finally, I had experienced people around me. I had great professors at NTNU. So I got to ask, how do you actually do it? Like, I get that we're learning this thing, but how do I do it for real, though? And he told me, for real, you would probably use C and C++. I heard that one's difficult.
This was your reaction.
I had heard bad things about C. That was all I knew. It was like, C is the hard one that you don't need to use anymore. But no, they were right, actually. So I, one year when I'd signed up for film music and pop music. There was a couple subjects that you could take. And last minute, I found out that those were just not going to be held, actually. I had put them in the thing. I had registered on the website. They were in my plans for the year or for the semester. And no, they just weren't happening. The teacher, the one guy responsible for those subjects was just not going to hold them. He's not going to host them. So I had to find something else a day after the deadline, actually, for picking your subjects. Luckily, that was okay. And I just frantically went through the website that lets you pick your subjects, and I found one that was called Computers and Digital Technique or something. That's cool. Yeah, computer stuff. Cool. Found some computer stuff filled in. That turned out it was a 4th year subject for people who are doing their masters in computer science. So I showed up to that class and I didn't understand anything from the first class we had with this super the computer science professor look where you have like very blonde hair that's kind of thin.
Okay.
Like Bjarne has that, and I feel like every ultimate programming character has that. We had one of those teachers. You could just look at him, you knew he was a legend. And so I really wanted to understand what the hell he was talking about in the first class. The first class, he immediately went into Moore's law and transistors and talking about logic gates. Because we were going to start at the bottom and work our way up. Like, here's how you create a flip-flop. Here's how you would construct a processor. He showed a couple of processors that students of his had produced.
Nice.
He had motherboards and stuff from previous years that the students had made. And he mentioned in the first class that, we're going to be using C and we're going to be using assembly for this class. And I think at some point, this was during COVID, so it was online. I wrote in the chat, like, I'm so excited to learn C. That'll be cool. And he said, no, we're not going to learn C. We're just going to use it. Implying you already have to know C to take this class. What are you talking about? Why are you here? Kind of. But yeah, we bought a development board that was an ARM chip. And then we learned to program Thumb 2. We learned CPU architecture. We learned cache, like L123. We learned, obviously, you program in assembly, so you get to be aware of the registers. And turns out, it's actually super easy. It's not complicated at all, actually, once you just do it and stop being scared from over here. And C is also not hard. So I did that, and then I did it with a friend who was just not paying attention. Sorry, bro. But he was just not into the subject. But, you know, being a good friend, I wanted to help him out. So I did all his homework.
Oh.
But, like, this was, again, during COVID. So everything was being run through a thing where they tested for duplicates.
Oh, really?
So they would check your code, they would check someone else's code, and they'd see if you just changed the indentation or whatever to make it slightly different. Which meant, and I was aware of that, of course. You know, that was part of my threat model. So I wrote every assignment twice. But I had to do them differently. I had to find a different solution to the problem. Or, maybe I can do it by incrementing this value and then I do the thing. Or I could do it by, you know, if I have a link to the thing. Like, I had to come up with different solutions to it. And that was just the best thing ever. That class was awesome. I wish I could take it again, because we also were supposed to learn the internals of the Java virtual machine. And I do wonder if he actually expected us to, like, be memorizing the like ones and zeros of the number of the instructions or something. There was some insane thing like that. But I didn't learn any of that because someone in the class wrote a Python tool where you just chuck in the thing going on in the JVM stuff and it would just give you the answer. And luckily that worked. So I cheated on that one. But other than that, that was just the best class ever. And that taught me the computers actually are kind of simple. And you can just understand them, and that means you can do the same stuff that you did in Python, but you just do it at a lower level. It's actually not that hard. And that gives you the power to do it for real. So then I was like, all right, I get it now. I get computers. I'm going to sign up for the C++ class. We're going to step it up here.
Oh, really? So you went from like Bash script, then Python, then sort of being afraid of C, as people are, generally speaking. If they learn programming now, like, everybody will tell you that, like, C is, like, you know, scary and you should avoid it, because, like, you know, there's, like, you need to manage the memory. Like, imagine
Yeah.
Manual memory management, imagine. And you went through it and see, wait, in assembly, you actually, like, you know, load stuff from memory and store things in memory. And you have registers and you move the data around them. And pretty much this ends the assembly lesson, because you don't have that many possibilities apart from that, you know. And then you said to yourself, you know what? Now I'm old enough to be and mature enough and experienced enough to start my real programming session. Let's go for C++.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, those were the choices, right? Because I had done the one technical subject. Now I have to do one more, because that was cool. I liked the programming. I want to get good at this. And because I think my greatest joy felt in programming was getting the frickin' light on the dev board turning on and off each second, because we were doing memory mapped IO stuff, and then we were going to make a stopwatch because it had a little display, and I was going to hit the button and it was going to start the timer and it was going to blink the light. When that thing worked and I'd written the whole thing in assembly, I was so overjoyed. It's like the most amazing feeling in the world. So I fell in love there, and I figured, okay, now it's time to step it up. We're going to do it for computers this time, though. No more dev board. So I got to learn one of the real programming languages. Clearly, C is not one of the real ones. That's C++, right? Because it has plus at the end.
Even two of them.
Yeah, two of them. Yeah, it was either that or it was Java. Those were our two choices, basically. in class, and I already hated Java without having tried it because every Java program I ever used was garbage.
Okay, nice. So you wanted to be like a real programmer, so you ventured into C++. What was your reaction, and what kind of C++ was it? Because like at my university, when we programmed like C++, even though it was like 2000, I don't know, 2015 plus, definitely, it was like C++ from 98. So like a lot of things, like you can have different alignment with the standard in the C++ world. So how you were introduced to C++ and what kind of C++ was it?
Well, let's see if you can guess. I'll tell you the name of the subject in Norwegian.
Okay.
It was prosedyre og objektorientert programmering.
Object, that's all I needed to know. It doesn't matter. So now the C++ standard version doesn't really matter. It's just about inheritance and stacking up inheritances in 4 different ways in C++.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it was buck wild. At this point, there was a guy who was in our class for a little bit who I saw using Vim to take notes.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, dude, I have to use Vim. That's so sick." He's like racing through it. So I learned Vim, and I got into the whole Linux thing. I'd been using Linux probably since like 6th or 7th grade with a friend of mine. We had an interest in the technical stuff, but I hadn't really like mainlined Linux. And I was like, you know what? Linux is for programmers. I'm a programmer, so I'm gonna learn Vim. I'm gonna be on Linux, and so I installed Linux, and I got Vim set up, and I'm like coding. I got my C++ compiler and all that, and I'm ready to start doing this. And it's the class is hell. It's just the worst. I regret ever taking it because it was. We were gonna use, what was it, GLFW?
Yeah, for Windows.
I think so. Yeah,
for
it's like a cross-platform windowing and UI. It gives you like some basic UI stuff, and drawing stuff. And we were gonna draw 3 smileys on screen. I remember this one really vividly. 3 smileys. One was going to be happy, one was going to be sad, and then one was going to have sunglasses.
Okay.
And to do this, you start out with, I think it was a class for like drawing at all as a concept.
Here we go.
And then like inheriting from that, there was a concept of like one drawing amongst them. And then inheriting from that, there was a concept of face. And then inheriting from that, it was like face with eyes. And then that had a sibling, face with sunglasses, which then had sons and daughters, which were either happy or sad. And then they said, okay, now look at how easy it is to extend this by like having the star eyes or something. It was awful. And the whole time I was sitting there thinking, why do I have to do this with like, it's impossible to understand what's going on in this program at this point. And changing things was so hard. But they're super contrived example for like, oh, but if we want to change the sunglasses to stars, you can just do that. And yeah, you could have just done that without the class bullshit anyway, but I guess not. And I learned so many horrible habits that I still have to kind of unlearn from that. We learned to pragma once everywhere. And I had no idea how inclusions were working. So I just pragma once and included from every file all the time, which later my good friend Sam Smith saw my code that I was writing. And she said, what do you do? Why do you have an include in this like super minor side H file that's like including the main.c thing? It was so many bad habits that I had to unlearn. So that really made me understand why a lot of this circle doesn't like what you're taught in university about programming.
No, yeah. Well, if you take this example with like how many classes you've made to just draw 3 faces, 3 smileys, and then you extrapolate from it and think through what will happen in a one big project developed in at a company for 20 years with like average tenure of a programmer of like 2.5 years, people coming and going, and you reusing these classes and extending them and like adding more and like tweaking them into different things and like changing them. It's like at some point you arrive in such a mess that like everybody's scared to touch anything because anything can influence anything else and nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, it seemed terrifying. I still, when I look at job applications or what are they called? Job adverts, where they say, oh, you need to be very comfortable with, usually now it's Rust and object-oriented C++. And it's a major security firm that makes weapons or something. I was just, oh no, these missiles, we can't trust them. So,
yeah, C++. Also, if you combine templates, there was a point in time where templates in C++ were popular. So if you combine this with inheritance, and you imagine like, I've seen code where you have like a base class that is like after you get like from five levels of step to the base one, to the base one, to the base one, you arrive in like the basest of the base classes, and they have like templates for Boolean flags. Like there's a template for a bool to say like are you on and off, but it's like wrapped in the template because it's a template. It's like, what? How much of the stuff can we fit in there? It's wild.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Wow. It's awesome. It will be. I hope it will be studied as in this archaeological fashion at some point. Yeah, how various like chains of thoughts like morphed into these weird things, but hopefully as a extinct thing.
Yeah.
So C++, you say you're not a fan of the object orientation, and then what happens next? You get through this class.
Yes, I get through the class. No, actually, I do all the work, but I just end up not taking the exam because I think the exam was probably colliding with some film job, and I did not care more for finishing that subject than I did for my film work. So just ignored that. Technically failed the class, which I'm kind of proud of because it was the worst.
Badge of honor. Failed the object-oriented class.
Yeah. I did get complaints from professors. Like, you didn't use the technique. We told you to set getters and make getters and setters. And I didn't, because eventually I found out what a struct was, and I just used structs when I could. But maybe I grew from the experience, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think it just inhibited me.
Is this the same? This is the same university that you, in the end, don't have a degree from?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the same. You have both music classes and also programming classes in the same uni.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very general uni. It's mostly for science. It's like Norway's technical and nature studies something university. So the music studies is mostly wave theory, acoustics, like how does sound work type stuff. Did some music and synthesis, but it was largely audio engineering.
What happens next on your programming journey then?
Not much. I tinker at home. I try to start making some plugins. I've tried to use CMake for a little bit. That also made me bounce off of trying to use, because there's a whenever you go on the internet and you ask, how do I make an audio plugin? Everyone says, oh, you use Juice. And it's another one of these things where you're not doing the real thing. Juice is closer, but it's a lib framework thing for making plugins. But I couldn't get it to build in a way that was reasonable on Linux because I had this minimal setup and blah, blah, blah. So I don't think I progressed for a little bit until I found... I'm pretty sure I found Jonathan Blow's... I think there was a compilation of Jonathan Blow being pissed at Visual Studio or something.
Okay.
And that was very funny. And then I watched a bunch of Jonathan Blow, and he talked about stuff like, things are way too complicated now. Programming today has been made, like, all the techniques and the philosophies have gone way too far in prescribing goofy ways of doing it instead of just doing the thing. And through that, found Casey Muratori and the Handmade network. So I joined that Discord and went to their coffee chats over once a week. And that's where I met Sam Smith, I met Ginger Bill, met Ben, of course. Lots of really cool and impressive programmers who had done awesome stuff that I'd never seen anyone do before. People that had written games from scratch. They made engines. People who had written their own programming languages. I remember so vividly that I was like, oh, it's over for me, dude. This guy on the server is like 17 years old, and he's made his own operating system in his own programming language. It's over for me. I'm never going to be at this level. But it turns out, you watch enough Casey Muratori and stuff, you get better. I don't know if I'll ever be at the level that Sam Smith is, but I'm trying to approach it.
You watched Handmade Hero videos, or?
I kept getting it recommended, but I actually didn't have the attention span for it, which is bad. I go to check the videos with the guide where you can search topics and the transcript. That's very useful. But I think I watched probably first 3-4 episodes or something. That whipped me into shape about some C stuff. But then for the most part, it was clips from the show. Okay. And later on the performance aware programming course, which is pretty good.
You're following the course.
Yeah, I'm not going through it diligently and doing all the assignments and stuff. I'm again using it as a resource. I'm curious about this.
We've already learned you're not much for homework, so
yeah.
Casey adds homework in the course as well to do stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
How did you then started your Odin journey?
I think I started experimenting with that probably not long after I joined Handmade Network. In part just because I didn't have Jai. I really wanted Jai. And I was like, oh, the syntax is kind of similar, so I guess I'll try that one. But I also tried Zig, and I tried Nim, and all sorts of other wacky stuff. But I hated Zig. I hated Rust. They just got in my way. I still can't believe that an unused variable is a compile error in Zig. That's terrible. You can't even put a thing for like ignore.
Unused variable in Zig is a compiler error. Like it fails the program to compile in Zig. Not
in Zig, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it might have. I don't think it would have changed now. I know there's a fork that specifically only removes that. So I just bounced off of that, and it gave me like at some points it wouldn't compile, but it didn't give me a compile error. It just wouldn't compile with no message, and then I bounced off of that. So, but Odin was gracious to me. It was very kind. It made doing things simple, and it still had the power of C, and I I quite enjoyed it. And also it was nice having Bill show up in the coffee chat every now and then and just getting to talk to the guy who had made the language. That made all my very stupid beginner questions get answered a lot more thoughtfully than probably they deserve to be.
Everybody in the beginning has a beginning question, so
Yeah, of course. It's good. It was very instructive. I learned a lot from Bill and from the discussions on the Handmade network.
When you tried various these like low-level modern programming languages, what would you say were the good features about them and what you disliked? Because not many of the people that are here on this show tried, and you mentioned already more than people usually try. Like sometimes people step away from C and C++ land into a different language, and then they come back. But you already mentioned Rust, Zig, Odin, Nim, and others. So what are the good features? What are the bad ones?
I like the having a dedicated specific compiler for the project. I think that's, or for the language. I think that's very good. Having the compiler is a massive plus compared to C++ and C, where there's a bunch of random compilers.
Not having like a suite of compilers from different producers, from different vendors.
Yeah. I think that's a massive, massive plus, because then you get the same errors, you get the same, you know that everyone's using the same language, you know that everyone's using the same tooling, and that's huge compared to C and C++. At least if it's, the compiler's written to run on every operating system. I don't know if any of that aren't, but it's really not. I like that about Rust. I like that about Zig. Zig is my favorite C compiler by far.
Say again? What?
Zig can compile C and C++ really well because it's just packaging LLVM. So it's kind of just a Clang front end.
Oh, really?
But it has a cross-platform linker, which is amazing because you can do proper cross-compilation with Zig and all the batteries are included. There's no like, oh, okay, I have to get Clang, but then to compile, I have to have libc or like one of the MinGW. Well, you don't have to think about any of that. All the batteries are included. You just say, I want to compile this program for Linux on any operating system. It'll just do that. And it links against a thing that is packaged with. No idea how it worked, but it worked. And of course, everyone's going to be like, oh, well, you have to. I'm sure. I had good luck with it, though. So it worked on my end.
Okay. So you like the uniform error languages, ease of use for the especially compiled languages, and anybody who used C and C++ knows that like ease of use in the C and C++ ecosystem is hard to find. So
yeah, dedicated build system is very nice, so you don't have to mess with CMake and make and all this stuff.
What do you disliked about these languages? What are things that, like, in your opinion, the authors might have got bad?
I'm not sure I'm in a great position to really critique, because I wouldn't consider myself a great programmer yet, but I've heard opinions that I generally think seem correct from my experience, and so I can echo those. And that's that I think in a lot of these languages that focus on being memory safe, they put the friction in the wrong place, because being memory safe is actually not hard. Catching memory leaks and use after free is actually easy. It's one of the easiest bugs to chase down. And so I don't think putting all the friction in place of like preventing a use after free or something is worth it. I think that's a misplacement. So that's with like Rust mostly. I guess there's ways to. I know King Terry the Terrible. He programs Rust in a way that's more reasonable and doesn't use like a gazillion features and arcs and promises and whatever the hell is going on in complicated Rust code. But and also, they're young, so they don't support everything. Odin can't compile for embedded stuff. I want to make a Game Boy Advance game, but can't compile for that, sadly, with Odin. There's stuff like that. Yeah. I mostly use Odin now, so my head is like spinning in Odin stuff. I have recently got access to the Jai, to the language, the compiler. So I am trying to do more of that just to thoroughly test it, because it's very good, very powerful, but terrifyingly powerful in much the same way as C++ is. Like if you gave Jai to the ridiculous goobers who do all this inheritance stuff, they're going to make hell. They're going to make the 7th or 8th circle. They're going to go beyond the ones that what's his name? Dante knew about. Okay, they're gonna make torture, because it's so powerful. You can do all sorts of wacky stuff, and I would never trust a rando team of programmers with it. But so that's the good thing about something like Odin, is that it actually is. It's not got much friction. It just has straight up walls in places where you can't do that. It doesn't let you, and that makes me trust the language to like restrict people from doing stuff that's too stupid in a nice way. So I think featurelessness to some extent can be a good thing.
Okay. Can you tell me something about Nim? I have never used it.
I tried to use Nim for Game Boy Advance stuff, because it can. I got as far as like writing a little bit and setting up the tool chain and stuff, but it didn't end up sticking, because it has this thing where like, Nim compiles to other languages, and then you compile that, like it goes to C, and then it's too complicated for me, so I bounced off that relatively quickly. But it seems to be like tries to have Python syntax while being low level.
Okay.
Which in retrospect I don't actually want. I don't want to write English. I want to write code.
So okay, you might be in minority now with the current advancement of artificial intelligence.
Oh, that's true.
Now, let's switch gears a little bit. We've met in July at the first inaugural BSC, a Better Software Conference.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit, and you've been one of the 3 organizers of this conference, can you tell me a little bit about how it came to be?
Ooh. Let me rewind in my mind. We wanted to see these cool people do a conference and like talk about super technical stuff. We were like yearning for that, and we didn't really see that being a thing around anymore. Like the old school handmade stuff. So we thought, we know some people on Handmade now. We know Wasim and we know Bill, and we know some technical stuff. So maybe we could do one. And originally the idea was just, we'll buy a projector and we'll do it in a room here. But yeah, we made the website. We called some people and asked, hey, if we do a little conference, how about, like, do you want to have a presentation? That'd be kind of fun. So I made the logo and the website and put that up, and we wrote ourselves on the list so that it wouldn't be empty. Which is why, we wrote ourselves as speakers so that, there wouldn't be an empty list. It makes it easier for people to say yes. And we asked a few people and they seemed super enthusiastic. They were like, yes, oh, dude, that'd be so sick if we had a cool conference and here in Europe. And people were so on board immediately. And then, you know, we got a little excited. We called like, okay, maybe we could ask like Vyacheslav. Wouldn't that be awesome if like Vyacheslav would go?
Vyacheslav, the author of File Pilot.
The author of File Pilot. Where's my shirt? Okay, I don't have it close. But are you wearing it?
I'm wearing it.
Yes. Yes. Good. Yeah, we asked Vyacheslav and we asked Ryan, which was crazy. And surprises, like in a massive surprise to us, they were really excited to do it. To just go to Sweden to do that in person. And that was a major blessing. And we figured, you know what? Like, just to be clear, at this point, we had been living in Sweden for a while. Me and Sam and Charlie. And we were fans of these people. They did not know we existed. We had never spoken to them. Well, I guess Sam had met Ryan and some people at Handmade Conf in the US. But like we could not call ourselves friends. That would be way overstepping. They certainly had never heard my name. So when we called and asked if they wanted to join in our conference, it was kind of like, how do we even say hi first? These people we are major fans of. And no, they were super excited to do it. It went from, I don't think Ryan will ever know that we exist, to like, oh, maybe it would be really cool, guys, if Ryan would like tweet about the conference. Wouldn't that be sick if he tweeted one of the videos? What if they were that good that he tweeted them? And then he was going, and that was insane. That was crazy talk. We were screaming and yelling so much. This all happened within a week, by the way. We had gone to the gym on a day, and we had met a guy from the commune, which is like a municipality kind of thing in Sweden. A guy there, he was like, "Oh, you young boys, why are you in this tiny municipality? No one who's young moves here. That's crazy. And you just have to meet the mayor." Which is true, by the way. Like, he saw us, thought it was crazy that young programmers were moving to this tiny municipality in Sweden. And so we just had to meet the mayor, of course, and explain why we would move to the middle of nowhere. And so he set up a meeting with the mayor in a week. And at this point, we didn't know we were doing the conference.
Okay.
Within that week before the meeting, BSC was a thing. It was afoot. We had, Sam had got a DM from Wasim. He had talked with him. We had some conversations around the place. Sam told me, Casey Muratori is coming to the conference. And I had been screaming very loud in my room. Or in our room. We all sleep in bunk beds in like a grid, military style. And at that point, the conference was afoot. It was sailing. We had, I think, 800 people on the mailing list. It was a big thing, and we had to figure out what the hell are we going to do with all these people that want to show up in Sweden. In the middle of nowhere, do we have to book a venue? In Stockholm, do we have to move it? Because we were going to do it in the small town, just in our room, but obviously it's going to be way more than that. We can't have Casey showing up to a projector in our apartment.
Imagine when you would pull off and like you would invite, it's like, hey, we only have like 15 places because we're actually going to have a projector in the room. And people would fly across the continent, like from US as well, and all across to Europe. And then you're like, welcome. And you like have this like less like a classroom style room with a projector. It's like, this is...
Yeah. Where are we going to house all these people? I wasn't even aware that there really was a hotel in the area. But, you know, we searched, we were thinking we were just going to book every Airbnb in the entire municipality. We really had no idea what we were getting into. But we get to that meeting with the commune where we were just going to explain why we went to this cozy, tiny town. Turns out it was not just with the mayor. The entire government was there. Everyone in all the administration had gone there. I guess...
Such an
small
event.
Town.
Such an event. 3 or 4 programmers moving in. Now we need to meet them. Like everybody needs to show up from the municipality. Nice.
Yeah, it was crazy. At this meeting, we of course explained our stuff and said hi to everyone. We'd kind of seen them around town because, you know, you meet the mayor at the local shop because it's such a small spot. And then we had to say, by the way, people, how many can we house? Because we have a huge conference that exploded in the past week, and we have to host this now, like international programming conference with some of the best programmers ever are just like excited to go. And they were very helpful. They were super excited about this. Obviously, this is the coolest thing that happened there all year, because this was the major advantage, I think. Once we saw how excited they were to help, they were, oh yeah, we'll get you a meeting with everyone who owns a hotel in the area. Like they were on it with helping us, and they were super excited about it happening, which never in a million years would have happened in Stockholm.
Yeah, of course.
You know, if we thought, oh, it's a big event now, we have to go to some big city to find a big venue or something, we would just be a pain in the ass, because we would be a relatively low budget thing. We would just be one of 150 programming conferences that venue is doing that year. It's just not interesting. But when you do it in a small town where you already know everyone and the place is relatively calm, then that's an exciting thing. Everyone wants that to happen. Everyone wants it to go well. It's the talk of the town, and everyone's so excited to help at the venue, at the hotel. We had such a wonderful host at the hotel, Agnieszka, who was so into the whole idea, and all of this local excitement and joy for it to go well made it go well. It went really, really, really well. It was the most awesome conference ever, and I don't know. I think the gods were really with us on it.
It felt real nice, and it felt like a gathering of long distance friends. Like, even though so many people didn't know each other beforehand, or only briefly saw each other like remotely, like after like first day, it was already like, oh, even after a first 4-hour train journey from Stockholm up north, you had already more than enough time to talk to everybody and to have some sort of relationship. And then it was just solidified. And I felt like this openness on everybody's front, like people in municipality, people in the hotel, of course, guests and speakers, like everybody was so open and into this idea, and they everybody was there for this set number of days. It was like, hey, this is like this time that is sort of like taken out of the year. I'm committing this time to be in the middle of nowhere in Sweden. And also the weather was perfect.
Oh yeah.
So like everything aligned and was really joyful. Really nice.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that. It was such a shot in the dark to be asking people, yeah, we're gonna do it in the middle of nowhere, and you have to take a 4.5-hour train journey to get here, and you're gonna be stuck here for a week. such an insane ask. I don't think I would have said yes to that if I was any of the people we asked, but they chose to take a chance on it, and I'm extremely happy they did. We got so much resistance. I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are, who were like, you cannot do this in a small town. It is impossible. It will never work. No one's going to say yes. But, luckily, I was wavering a little bit on the idea, but Sam is just headstrong and refused to budge on this. And leaning on him, we were just, okay, let's trust the plan and hope that it goes well, and it certainly did.
Now, I want to ask you, I think people who are listening who would have liked to come but couldn't, because the model of the conference was invite only. And
yeah.
Initially, for me, I was thinking like, it's a tough thing to sell, because now you're inviting only like the limited number of people. Mm. On the other hand, having been there, it didn't feel like a conference at all because of it. It felt like this gathering of friends. And what's your take on this sort of invite-only style, where you have the streaming, high-quality streaming and video in high quality very soon after the conference? So like more people can enjoy it still, but not everybody can come. Mm. What's your take? I guess, how did you think about this before the conference and after the conference? Did something change? Meaning, like, would you, if you were to do it again, would you do it differently? Do you think it was a good idea? Because like this, I think some people that are listening might like grapple with this invite-only style.
Yeah. It. We knew we wanted good Q&A. And for that, we were kind of terrified of you have a list of 800 people who want to go. And there's no way to know that, if you get an audience of 800 randos from the internet, there's no way to know that you're going to get good Q&A and questions and stuff. There's a famous thing where Elon Musk is doing some speech, and there's a public Q&A, you walk up to the mic, you get to ask questions and whatever. And there's a guy who's like, oh, I'm a super genius just like you, please hire me. I feel like I could be your right-hand man. I'm such a genius. You have to hire me, Elon. Please give me a chance. And we just want the opposite of whatever that is, right? So we wanted to be careful to like grab people who we thought would contribute to like really good conversation and a good vibe at the conference. And so the only way to really do that seemed to be to pick the people that we could see obviously are going to be great fits for what we're trying to build. And so we did that, and I think it worked pretty well, because we didn't have that much capacity to store humans there anyway. So we had to be selective anyway. Yeah. So that's mostly the reason.
Human storage capacity in the middle of nowhere in Sweden was low.
Yes, sir.
Actually, the very fact that in Brekke was a hotel that could host like 60 people, it's not obvious for like a city of 2,000 that it's gonna be like a nice hotel there, that it's gonna be it's not Absolutely it's not common.
No. What a good hotel too. It's such a cozy feeling. It's got a good socialization area. Like most of the good of the conference, which of course the people on the internet didn't get to see, because to them it was a 3+1 day event of some streams. But for us, it was mostly hanging out, having dinner together, having good discussions, and then going to the venue for the talks, but then going back to the hotel together, and that was, at least to me, I didn't expect that to be so much of the goal of the conference going into it, but it certainly was when we were there. I realized that was what it was really about. was the hanging out with friends, new friends.
Nice. Now, what can you share about Better Software Conference in the future?
I don't know yet. We're ringing it. We want to keep doing it because it was extremely fun and we learned so much. And I think the internet seemed to enjoy it, and we want to give more to the people as well. And I'm really excited to meet everyone again, including you. I want you to come back for 2026. So yeah, I think the conclusion from every, big meeting and conference, they have a big accord, like the climate accords or something. The only thing they really conclude is that we should do this again next year. And so that's what we've concluded. We should do this again next year.
Okay, nice. Now, getting back into more of the technical zones, do you want to share some of your projects that you've been working on? You have, let's mention, you have an amazing BSC talk that you go through your handcrafted algorithms to phase. Now I'm gonna butcher that. Can you tell me what's the title of your talk?
Sure, it's dynamic phase correction, phase alignment. I don't remember now. Dynamic phase alignment in audio. Probably that. Yeah.
You're doing a terrific job on stage, and I would highly recommend people to watch that. I'll put the link in the description because this talk is really phenomenal. Both the delivery and the content. It's really good. So seriously. And this was one of your projects that also you've done in Odin. Now, do you have, at least partly in Odin, right?
I did the presentation in Odin, but I wrote that in C. That was...
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. You made slides in Odin.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to share some of your projects?
Sure. I mean, most of what I publish is small tools, but that one I guess is a slightly major one. I'm rewriting it in Odin now.
Okay.
So I have to figure out how to make an audio plugin in Odin now.
Maybe you can do a quick summary. What is it about? Because the details will be in the talk, but what is it about and what will be the future of it?
Yeah. What it does is it lets you phase align things where the microphones and sound source are moving during the recording. So you'll have a microphone up above you and a mic here, usually on movie sets. You have the boom, you have the lavalier. And the actor and the boom are all moving, the lavalier is moving, which means that the distance from the mic to the sound source is also changing, meaning you get a dynamic delay, right, that's changing, and that makes things go in and out of phase in unpredictable ways that change during the recording, and that's very different from when you record a drum set or something. The mics are all stationary, the drums are all stationary, so if you align them at one point, the whole thing is aligned. But with this, you align it at one point, half a second later, it's out of phase. So you have to have some algorithm to align that, and the talk is basically about that algorithm. Yeah.
Nice. Now you're writing this in Odin. Why? C is great, I've heard. And then what's the future of it? Because right now, if you would like to have this algorithm as an individual, you would need to pay for license from other vendors, right?
Yeah, I don't know that anyone has published an algorithm that does this, actually. I couldn't find one. Because if I found one, I would have just packaged one.
Okay.
Probably. But I could not find a solution to this. When I tried Googling, I tried asking all the LLMs. But as far as I could tell, there was no published solution to the problem. There's just a plugin that does it. but they didn't have any blog posts explaining how it works or anything. And the plugin is it's only for Windows and Mac. I want to use it on Linux. And you have to use this freaking DRM that takes up a USB port on your computer to use it. And that's just not happening. I'm just not ever buying that. That's ridiculous. So I figured, you know what? If it doesn't exist, I'll figure it out and make it myself. So it might not be novel. It might be novel. I don't actually know.
Okay. You're writing in Odin. You need to tell me why.
I like it.
Odin.
Yeah, I really like Odin.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just feel it's just so comfy, and I'm tired of like, oh, I'm working on a big thing, big change or something, and then at some point I drop a semicolon, and now I get a no useful errors and life is hell, and I just have to undo a ton. There's so much friction for no reason. And I am kind of done dealing with that, basically.
What's the future of this plugin / algorithm? What do you want to do with it?
I want to release a standalone program that does it, where you can just drop in a file. It will automatically find... I could go on a rant about the WAV file format, because I've been dealing with that, but I will save that. I want to release a program where you can just drag a file in. It will find the track that's named boom, or just pick the first one, automatically find which one is the boom track, what's the lavalier tracks, and then spit out a phase-lined version of that file. Because I don't really see why the program would need to be running the whole time. Like the current only solution to this does that. It runs as a plugin in your audio program. You have to have it on each of the tracks you want to align. Which means it's always there using CPU and memory, but this is actually a process that can just be done, and then you're done. You can just print the result. So I would probably just use it standalone like that. And then eventually I'll probably make a plugin for it, because people will want that. It's convenient to just throw it in.
And you want to release it for free as a paid product?
Probably paid product. It's a lot of work.
No. That's normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've always... I like open source stuff, but also I need to eat food.
That's a valid concern, you know.
Yeah.
Now, if we want, I would be very eager to hear a rant about the WAV format.
Oh, okay. So, when we record on movie sets, we record WAV files, because WAV files are uncompressed and they're simple. You can just, when you write them, they're written interlaced, so that when you have multiple channels, it writes a little bit from channel 1, a little bit from channel 2, a little bit from channel 3, a little bit from channel 4. And that way you can just keep writing like that. You don't have to write all of channel 1 and then all of channel 2. Because that way, if you lose power on your recorder, it's not like all in RAM and then it has to spit it out into this like sequence thing. Instead, you just write a little bit all the time and it can crash and be fine. And that's very nice. There is an extension to WAV that's called Broadcast WAV and PolyWave, which is like basically you can have tons of tracks in your WAV file. Because when we're on a movie set, you have the boom, you have actor 1, actor 2, actor 3, actor 4, actor 5, up to actor 10 or whatever. It has lavaliers on them. And then, one of them drives up in a car. So we've hidden a microphone in the like sun visor thing in the car. So you end up with, you can have 16 plus tracks on a movie set. And if those were all separate WAV files, that'd be really annoying. So we pack them all into one, and that's called PolyWave. Then you want to store stuff like, okay, we need to know what's the name of each track. what's in each of the tracks. So you can set a name on your recorder, tell it like it's boom, and then the names of the actors and stuff. And you probably also want to record time code so that you can sync it with video afterwards. There's a bunch of metadata you want to put in there. So they extended it with a metadata thing where they have a fixed size block of text where you can write key value pairs. It's like thing equals thing, thing equals thing, thing equals thing. And then eventually you get to a point where it's like track 1 equals blah, blah, track 2, blah, blah, blah. But the size of that is fixed. The size of that metadata thing. So if you go above about 8 tracks-ish, you run out of text. So the rest of the tracks are just not in there. So you read that, you parse that. You're like, okay, I'm going to write a wave parser. It's just floats or like PCM 24-bit thing in a sequence that's interlaced. That's easy, right? Well, it turns out now you have to do a little bit of text parsing.
Yeah.
And then because they hit a limit with that one, they're like, we want to store more stuff. So they did something called iXML, which is now you have a variable size, massive text block of XML in your wave file. So now you have to write an XML parser to parse wave. And inside here, they'll have all the tracks, and including the ones that were mentioned in the previous one. So I guess you can just ignore that one if you want. And
you mean like they have redundancy, meaning they have the same data more than once?
Yeah, and it can be wrong. Like hilariously, in the XML file, obviously the XML is written by the recording device, so it's up to them what they want to put in the XML, which means now I have to test my wave parser on waves recorded on different devices, because they could have written different XML with different names for keys and shit. So I have to go around asking all my friends, hey, can you record a wave file for me with this many tracks on your blah, blah, blah series recorder? And then I have to go through my collection and get one from each of the recorders to make sure it works on all of them. It's like not even a file format at this point. It's not a format. It's a text file. So I have to do that. And then they have things like current file name is in the XML. So if you rename the file, you have a field in there that says current file name that's just wrong as soon as you rename the file. Maybe there's some super IQ genius reason for this stuff, but I have yet to see it.
Okay, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought WAV, uncompressed format for audio, meaning I can only see floats there. That was my expectation. This is why I was so intrigued by your hate for WAV format. But okay.
And also, of course, when they made it initially, it was all 32-bit, which means it has about a 4 gigabyte size limit. So they had to make RF64, which is for like WAV files that can be big.
Yeah.
And so you have to, but that's not super uncommon, but it's like it has the exact same file extension, but now it has different, you have to expect there to be a string that's slightly different now, and so then you have to have a different code path that uses 64 bits and stuff. But I guess that's probably pretty common in file formats. But
it's probably
more stuff to deal with.
A way to avoid, there are versions, especially the binary formats, they usually versioned in the beginning, because they will change over time, but you don't want to do another extension to the file format or something. So yeah nice. So you also have blog with your posts and thoughts. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. I have a lot of websites, a ridiculous amount. So I have my local language picture blog where I post like an Instagram. I didn't want to have Instagram anymore, which I don't like. I don't like the like social media. Try to glue your face to the screen stuff. So I quit Instagram, made my own little website where I can post pictures, and then I have Sparkburst, which is my online skate park where I get to do whatever I want. I post my my software there, and people can download that. And then I have a Codex North, which is a thing where I write articles, which are more philosophical, more like my view on things. I share opinions on there, and yeah, it's analyses of various things. I'm a compulsive writer. I have thoughts on things a lot, and I write them down, and they become articles. I hated writing in school. Whenever they gave us a thing, you had to do this, you have to write this. I could not stand writing. And then eventually, you grow up, you start thinking, which is weird. And then I have to put those somewhere, all those thoughts, and I put them into Obsidian. I have a really huge folder of musings where I will write 3,000-4,000 word articles on stuff that I will just never release. 90% of what I've written is not on the internet, but every now and then there's a banger, and and when there's a banger, I'll put it on Codex North. Yeah.
You like Nordic mythology, right?
Yes, sir. Here's the Eddas, my collection.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like, I only understand this briefly, like the very, very vaguely. But what are the ideas around it, and like, can you tell me a little bit about like the background of Nordic mythology? Because like I feel like in our schools in Poland we explore a lot about Greek mythology and like ancient Rome, but not necessarily Nordic.
Yes. Norse mythology, probably there's a lot of theories that derives from the Greek ones, because there's the thunder god is very important and central, and stuff like that is so there's probably some overlap and some inheritance going on as the Norwegians moved north and brought stuff with them. But the central thing in Norse mythology, the core of the story, is Odin is told by a prophecy, a seeress, a volve, that he is going to die. The world is going to end. His favorite child, Balder, will be killed, and this will set off a chain of events that will end the world. The great wolf will free himself and eat your face. And so Odin dedicates himself to this quest of, okay, I have to gather as much wisdom as possible. I have to gather the greatest army. I have to build and prepare for the end of the world. And that's the main through line in Norse mythology, is that, there was this golden age, and then, there was a war, things went kind of bad. Now we're in the middle of things getting worse. And in the end, things are going to get really shit. So now we're preparing for that, basically. And that's, in between there's a bunch of fun stories that happen, and they all have cool symbolism. But the through line is Odin, the wise old man, has to figure out, can I stop fate? Can I fight fate and save the world and my family and myself and my children?
Okay. Okay, that's a little bit different from Greek mythology, right? Greek mythology is like, hey, here's how world happened, and at some point kind of like gods interfere to some degree in various myths with the humanity, but it's not like it's on the sort of quest line or base quest line for that is happening in the background.
Right, that's kind of, yeah, I don't know what the main quest line in the Greek and Roman world would be, but there is a lot of overlap. Like it's, for instance, with Achilles, the famous story of Achilles has this one weak spot, his heel, because his mother, the feminine principle, has dipped him in a river of protection, but she was holding him by his heel, and so she missed that spot. And eventually that ends up being his downfall. He's this great favored child. He's got golden hair, and he's like, oh, awesome. But in the end, he dies to his one weakness, and he's like a symbol of the good getting killed by the one weakness that was left there by a feminine principle. And in Norse mythology, you have Balder, which is a favored god. He's very glorious, beautiful. He's just a good guy. He's sort of a symbol for good things. And he's so good, in fact, that when the prophecy says, okay, he's going to die, actually, he's going to fall apart at the end, his mother is like, this cannot happen. Don't quote me on her being motivated by the fact that, like, this should not happen. It might be that she just does this on her own because she realizes she loves her child so much. But she goes around all the worlds promising every single object in everything never ever to hurt Balder. Except for one thing, which is a mistletoe. Because, like, it's just a little mistletoe. We'll get a mistletoe due to Balder. I mean, come on, it's just so a little cute mistletoe, whatever. And so through like pity, kind of, the feminine principle leaves a weak spot, and in the end, what ends up killing Balder is a mistletoe arrow.
Oh, really?
His one weakness that kills the favored child. And so there's a bunch of those kind of symbolic overlaps that where they're kind of stories about the same thing, because humanity hasn't changed all that much. We kind of have the same stories to tell. We just use different characters.
Okay.
Love that stuff. I could talk about that for hours.
Nice. I want to close out asking you about video games. What kind of video games did you play or do you play now?
I grew up not having that many consoles and stuff because those are expensive, and actually, so I just inherited whatever my brother had. So I got an NES as a kid. I grew up playing Super Mario, like OG first Super Mario Brothers for the NES. I remember at Christmas, my brother came home. He had bought Super Mario Bros. 3. That was the coolest thing ever, bro. You could fly in the game. Pokemon. Pokemon was cool growing up, trading Pokemon with people. But nowadays, I don't play many video games anymore. I try not to, in fact, because I think they are fun, but to some extent, there's a thing there that happens where you will have friends because you play video games with them, and this is going to sound harsh, but to a large extent, quite often, they aren't friends. You're just addicted to the same drug.
Whoa.
So I try not to play too many video games. Like, I'll have friends, and on occasion, Sam or Wasim and I or something, we'll play a video game, but it's a minor thing. It's not like, hey, are you going on CS tonight? I had that for a little bit of my life, and I looking back on it, I don't think that was a good way to spend my time. Okay.
If you were to play a game today, like, what kind of game would it be? I'm assuming it's not gonna be grinding CS for like 100 hours a week, but would it be like, what's your preferred genre of video games?
I like good video games.
Oof.
And so it doesn't really matter to me if it's fantasy or if it's puzzle or if it's whatever it is. If it's really, really great, if it's The Witness, yes, that's great. I have no qualms about spending many hours in The Witness, because I feel like that expands my mind in a really beautiful way, and challenges me, and it has me experience beauty in a well-structured way. It's a really good work, and that I really love. if I'm going to play a video game, it has to be a good world that I want to be in or something that I feel I grow from. I'm very excited for Sokoban. I don't know if I'll finish all the 378,000 levels he's making, but I'm excited to try that. I like Skyrim. Not because the gameplay is good. It's actually kind of garbage. I hate the gameplay. I hate the combat. But the world is really good. The music is beautiful. It's a place I want to be and explore. To some extent, that was true about Cyberpunk. And Elite Dangerous is a little bit like that when you get to experience the coldness of space in like a spaceship simulator. That kind of stuff is cool. But, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be like, man, if only I had built more Minecraft houses. You know? When you're 76, you're not going to be like, oh, I really wish I had scrolled more on X. When you're, God forbid, you're at your wife's funeral, you're not going to be thinking, oh, I should have been more entertained in the past. I think so many of the things, I've switched a thing in my language recently where I will, instead of saying, oh, you should check that out, it's really good, you'll love it, I will say, you shouldn't do that because you'll like it. That's probably the biggest issue now, is that there's so many great things and you have very little time and you have to pick very carefully what you're going to spend your time on. And I'm luckily starting to become more terrified of wasting it. And as much as Skyrim is fun, I don't want to spend any more hours in Skyrim, really. I mean, I live in Skyrim. I could go outside. I'm in Norway. I should just go for a walk instead. So, for the most part, I advise against video gaming especially if you haven't done your homework. Okay, you need to.
No,
if you need to do the work first.
A little bit hypocritical, you know. At this
do
point.
As I say, not as I do. Okay. It's.
Fair enough. You are living in Skyrim, but you won't get a dragon flying in.
That is true.
So
I will be missing the dragon, but you know, I can read about the dragons, and then I can look at a mountain where there totally was a dragon in the past.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Perfect, Sander. Thank you so much for the discussion. This was really nice.
Thank you, Wookash. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's an honor and a privilege. Far above my station to be invited on here, so I appreciate it.